Welcome to Commander Central, episode 47. Today we're going to be doing a bit of a deck tech on Oloro Ageless Ascetic. This is going to mostly be us telling you to run Felidar Sovereign, and then we're just going to eat crackers for like 45 minutes and call it a night.
I ate all the crackers
The
already.
crackers are all gone. Before we get into the crackers, though, we'll talk about some games we played, some news, and just some stuff. I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
So I look around this room and I see no one blew off any fingers over the 4th of July weekend, even though it hasn't really happened yet, and I'm just saying that like we haven't recorded this ahead of time. So I'm going to assume none of us blow off any fingers over 4th of July weekend.
I do have a tip for our listeners, though, and this happened to me probably about 10 years ago. There's this wonderful thing called Saturn missiles, and they come in this box. Apparently, you're supposed to take the wrapper off of it before you light it,
Yeah,
because if you don't, they kind of like arc out of the wrapper and go wherever they want to go.
I've done that before.
So don't do that.
We were at like someone's cabin up north. It was one of my relatives, and it was 4th of July weekend, and this person, I won't say which relative it was, not that anyone listens, but I don't want to incriminate anybody, was gonna like put on the fireworks show. So he went out onto the raft in the lake, and everyone's like on the shore, on the dock, waiting for it, and he'd been drinking all day and shouldn't have been handling fireworks.
America.
But this is America.
Wisconsin.
This is America.
This is Michigan.
Yeah, this was
Michigan.
yeah. And so he starts lighting fireworks and then like loses his balance in the raft and falls over, not into the water.
Oh, no.
But then knocks all the fireworks over that are lit, and they just start pew pew shooting at everyone on the dock. Like people are like diving out of the way because there's just like missiles shooting right at everybody.
Roman candle wars. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I
So
used to do Roman candle wars with my buddies until the one day I ran out of shots and he still had them, so I chucked my tube at him and ran away.
We would always do it up at my grandparents, and we'd do it in the shallow water. So, like, if you got hit, you just had to dunk.
right.
Yep.
But after everybody found out what we were doing, we didn't get to play
Right. I
Roman
was just saying,
candle
like, I would imagine once supervision was involved, once
Yeah.
people realized that that's probably not kosher anymore.
war. I think the best 4th of July, I was probably like 6. We always used to do, like, we called it blow up your backyard. So we'd invite all our friends over to my parents' house, and we had this old Weber grill that was rusted and decrepit. So one of our friends somehow came across some cherry bombs, because that's back when they were classified as a firework and not a explosive.
Explosive that
Not
you
a-
can't get your
not
hands
a
on
terrorism
anymore.
device.
So we put it was like the second to last thing we did. We put the 6 cherry bombs. We made a really long fuse, put them in the bottom of the grill, put the lid of the grill on top, lit the fuse, and we ran the fuse through the smoke holes. That lid went about 18 stories in the air and about a block and a half south of my parents' backyard.
Oh, no.
You could hear it. It sounded like a bomb literally got dropped in our backyard.
So
It was the coolest thing. And I'm sitting on our Fisher Price Little Tykes playset way on the roof going like, that was awesome.
This was like last year, right? This was last summer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Alcohol was not involved at that time that I know of.
But you're still a little tight to us.
Yes.
All right. Any interesting games anyone played this week we want to talk about? Nothing special?
No,
Because it was holiday weekend and I didn't play on Tuesday, and I don't know if you guys did either.
I think I'll be there for a little bit if I could see the future.
If you right, you're gonna guess that you would be there on Tuesday.
I'm
'cause
looking,
I know I won't
I'm looking
be.
into the future, and I see A1 Dan Mel is going to be there
He
on
is.
Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
So I might have to go and visit him.
That is probably, as we said last week, we're doing a double up.
Yes.
So this is actually the week before the 4th. I will most likely be stopping in to play a game with Dan, but it sounds like my volleyball friends want to do something the night before the 4th, since we all have the 4th off, so we can all have adult beverages and not worry about going to work on Thursday
Sure.
with a hangover. So I'll probably be in the shop for a little bit, and if the plans fall through, which they tend to happen with this group, I'll just stay at the shop longer.
Nice.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we'd like to do a little reminder. We have some contests coming up in the month of July.
Yes, so this month's contest for Twitter, we are giving away a Judge Foil Pendelhaven, courtesy of Mike Peterson of Lodestone Coffee and Games. So use the hashtag CMDRJudge.
That is CMDR Judge.
Yeah. Not Judge Dredd, but CMDR Judge.
I'm the jury and the executioner.
And then for our Patreon supporters, as long as you are a current supporter or a new supporter by July 31st, you will be entered to win the Judge Foil Merchant Scroll.
Only the second existing foil merchant scroll. The first one was 7th edition?
8th edition.
8th edition. Actually, the Judge Foil art looks really, really good. I like
Yeah.
that merchant scroll a lot. Where can you find us online if you have any questions about Patreon or anything else?
You can find us on Twitter,
On the Twitter birds. On the Twitter birds.
CMDR Central. Facebook search us. Yeah, my whole impersonation of William Shatner's not working out. So Facebook search us,
I wonder where that
CMDR
was going.
Central. YouTube search CMDR Central and online at cmdrcentral.com.
And our home away from home at flipsidegaming.com. Use promo code CMDR in your checkout and you'll get 10% off your order. And we get a little kickback as well, and we graciously accept that, and thank you so much for purchasing cards through them.
So we are going to talk Oloro. This deck was submitted to us by Patreon Seth, and it isn't even his deck. It's a friend's deck. So first, I'll quick mention a few things about Oloro. It's the 4th most popular commander in EDH Rec, behind Atraxa, Marin, and Brea. But I don't know why I looked at this, but I just was kind of curious. All 3 of those other commanders are in a bunch of other decks, like Atraxa's in 800 and some decks, and Marin's in like 500 decks. Oloro is only in like 125 decks or so on EDH Rec. So for some reason, probably because his abilities tend to work out of the command zone, people are not running Oloro in their deck. They're just running him as a commander.
Which makes sense.
It makes sense in the context of what he does for sure. So we got a few rules here about what we need to do because Seth's friend had some caveats. Max, you want to read those here quick about her Oloro deck?
Yeah. So the caveats were no 1-for-1 fetch lands,
Okay.
no Divining Top, no counting things. So
I like that.
no counters on the creatures, no tokens,
No math.
no extra crap on the battlefield,
Yep.
essentially. No tokens or counters. Look at that. That was the next thing on the list. No mean win combos. So that's a very loosely defined
is,
term.
right.
So
There was a different word that was used in that.
Yeah.
And we'll
Yes.
start it with an A and end it with an E.
we change it to mean for the
PG,
the
family friendly.
the tender ears in the audience.
They don't mind locking people out of the game, though, so that's a little odd, but cool. I'm
That
down
seems
for that.
that's an odd thing when there's no mean combos but lockouts, but okay, we can go with that.
Straightforward cards, simplistic,
Yep.
not very complicated.
I can respect that.
This person does not like to attack
Okay.
and wants the ultimate protection package.
Well, you were in the right colors for it, for sure. Okay, so we'll put links out there to this deck and a couple other things we've got going on here. But so for the first pass on the deck as it stands, so we got a couple of things. Max basically kind of rebuilt it from the ground up,
Ish,
or an idea anyway for a deck, and I did too. But we'll also do kind of the pass to like clean it up as is if she wants to keep the deck where it's at and just kind of tweak it and tune it and make it a little bit easier. We've got that. So let's do that first. Let's go over the deck and talk about what things in this Oloro deck you could do to maybe make it better. So general observations, first of all, average CMC is 4.15. That is, I think, pretty high. What do you guys think?
It's a little high, but if you want the ultimate protection package plus full lockout, I don't think it's bad.
Do you have any rules of thumb you use, or do you just like play by ear when it comes to CMC in a deck?
You guys know how I build my decks. I just jam
Right,
random
yes,
cards
right.
in there. If it works, cool. If not, okay, now it's time to tweak it.
I think depending on your theme, like you just said, if you want the ultimate protection package and a lockout, you're not going to get that 3.5 and under. You're gonna break
Sure.
4 in my opinion, and I think that's perfectly fine, especially in these colors. It's Esper. You don't have green
Right.
to ramp, so you're really reliant on artifacts.
It's all artifact ramp to get you there. That's for sure. Okay, so let's look at the lands here first of all. Land base is relatively, I would say, conservative. There's no duels or anything, and as per her rules, there's no 1-for-1 shocks really. I guess there's a Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. Is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So anything you guys think and the land base that jumps out at you.
No mana confluence.
Exactly.
That's one of my first notes. Because City of Brass was there, but no mana confluence.
Yep.
And I feel like it's one of those things. If you want one, you probably want both.
Especially in this deck where you're netting that 2 life back every turn
Right.
anyways, so it's not hurting you.
And particularly because you're also not running like the perfect dual mana base and all the fetches and everything. So your mana base, it's going to be a little bit tighter getting there every turn.
Yep.
So I would say I would put mana confluence in there. Like one of the first changes I would make would be that.
Otherwise, based on the restrictions we were provided, I think it's a fine mana base. It's nothing too overpowerful, nothing too weak. He has the check lands in there, the bounce lands, a couple pain lands. So I think it's fine for the way this player likes to play.
I would say Exotic Orchard I would find room for because for the most part winds up being just a tri-land that comes into play untapped. I would also probably try to find room for the 2 new Battle Bond lands, which would be Sea of Clouds and Morphic Pool in this case, that fit in this deck. Those have been just
all-stars.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you can't fetch
And they're
them.
not expensive cards.
No, I was actually looking today, so this is airing, the second week of July, but we're recording this end of June. I was just looking at a couple today, and both those lands are just over $3. You can get them online for just over $3. I mean, for lands that are just almost always going to come into play untapped and make 2 colors mana, that's really, really good. So I would look at those 2 as well. And also, just generally speaking, if you're a commander player who builds decks, you should probably start stockpiling those lands. Because Battle Bond's not going to get opened a whole lot more at this point, and they may not get reprinted for some significant amount of time.
Or ever.
Or maybe, right. I mean, I think eventually we'll see them in something, whether it's like New Conspiracy or whatever it is. But it could be years. And I feel like I'm going to want these in almost all of my decks that can run them. So
My foils are holding steady at what I purchased them at, or if not higher.
So as an aside, right, I would suggest anyone who doesn't have those lands, pick up a couple maybe of each and just set them aside for future deck building because they are great. But yeah, I kind of agree. I don't, you could of course min max that land base out perfectly, but it would also cost you, $700 more. So, if you're trying to keep it the way she wants, I think you would maybe add a Confluence and an Orchard, maybe a few of those Battlebound lands, and that's probably good enough for what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Artifacts. Anything there that jumps out at you?
No Chromatic Lantern.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you could run Manolith too,
No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't run Manolith.
What's the other one? Darksteel.
Darksteel Citadel. The Coalition Relic.
Yep.
I guess there's no dragons for the new dragon one, but there's a lot of things you could run that you should run over Obelisk of Esper. But I would definitely find room for Chromatic Lantern.
Yep, Chromatic Lantern was the big one when I was looking through this. I was surprised not to see it in a 3-color deck. I don't know if there's budget constraints or something in there, but it's usually one of the first cards that I would slot into a 3-color deck.
For sure. Well, we've mentioned it. I can think of at least 2 different times on this show, and when we were talking about games we played, where someone mentioned, I won that game because of Chromatic Lantern, because I didn't draw a whatever it is for the first 14 turns, but I had a Chromatic Lantern out and nobody noticed I didn't have a mountain or whatever it is. I can think of twice we've had that conversation where somebody's Chromatic Lantern let them win a game or be in the position to win because I didn't draw the right color mana and it got them there.
Right.
So, yeah, that's one I would for sure try to find a slot for. And if you can go back in time and enter a contest to win an autographed Chromatic Lantern from this podcast,
you probably should have.
Whose winner we will announce next week. That's something you should have done as well. That would be really, really good. So
if you have that time machine,
if you have that time machine technology,
come get a hold of me too.
That's what you should
do.
do.
I'll go with you.
Don't go back in time and buy Alpha Booster packs.
Right,
Just enter our contest.
Enter our contest with your time machine for sure.
Limited time gap.
So yeah, that was the big one for me. I'd probably tweak those rocks a little bit.
Yep.
I do like a couple of them. I do like. I'm a fan of Sundrop with an Oloro decks. The way the life loss trickles back in, gets you triggers. So I'm a fan of that card. I like Thematic Compass in general. I think Thematic Compass is a pretty good card, and that's in here, and it flips over into the kind of Maze of Ith.
Yep.
So that's a good protection card as well.
I love Well Lost Dreams.
Yeah, in a life gain deck for sure. Because a lot of times you think of Well Lost Dreams as something you would run in a deck that has less card draw options than maybe you'd get in black and blue. But by you gaining so much accidental life here. Yeah, it's great in Oloro for sure.
Yeah.
How about creatures?
There's a lot of creatures in this
And
deck.
it's a lot of creatures in a deck that doesn't seem to want to swing for combat damage.
A lot of these creatures don't, though. That's the thing.
That's true. I guess that's true.
They're more protection creatures.
Yeah, and they all do a thing. Like they almost all have some kind of an ability, whether it's like Solemn that just ramps you up, or Rock's Faithmender that's doubling the amount of life you gain, or Psychosis Crawler that's punishing people.
Yep.
So they're mostly cards that have an ability that's designed to do a thing. The one, not that I'm ever going to say Academy Rector isn't an absolute bomb, because it is. It's a disgusting card. But I don't know if there's anything that you're doing with it that's disgusting here. And there's no way to sack it, I don't think. I didn't see a way that you could sack it on demand. So you're just hoping someone kills your Academy Rector, and then you're going to put what into play? Phyrexian Arena, Quarantine Field, which is fine. Those are fine cards. But like, I'm not sure.
Well, Quarantine Field would be a bad one because,
I guess because
you have to pay the X.
But okay, so Blind Obedience Sign or like whatever.
Right.
I just don't know if any of those cards are things that are worth the hoops, maybe.
I agree with that.
I love the card. Like, I love Academy Rector.
I mean, he is running a few board wipes, so maybe that's how they get rid of it.
But also one or two of them are exile. Like Merciless Eviction is an exile effect.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only one. But I'm a fan of Grand Abolisher, just generally. That screws people up. It's kind of gives you the Dromoka effect. So there's some good stuff here. Blazing Archon just gets people from attacking you, so there's protection cards as well.
I like Stormtide Leviathan.
Yeah.
It's another Pillow Fort-esque card.
It's a little maybe tough to cast in this deck.
Especially with no Chromatic Lantern.
Without Chromatic Lantern, without a really great mana base, that trip blue is tricky sometimes. But it's fine. I get what she's trying to do here. And there's no Felidar Sovereign.
Maybe that's one of those
We'll get into that.
jerk win cons.
Maybe.
I hope not.
Maybe. Yeah.
I really hope not.
I'm not exactly sure what they are specifying as one of those combos, because I have one that I'm going to suggest here that might not be one that you want to play.
Well, mine might be even jerkier than yours, so we'll see when we get there.
Then I'm the least of the dirtbags this week.
You would never lie to someone about an Ulamog coming into play. Who would do that?
I didn't want that omniscience on the field.
Right, that's understandable. How about instant spells? Anything in there that jumps out at you? Changes you want to make, etc.
I like all the instants. They're your basic draw spells. There's Rift.
There's
Evacuation.
Removal.
Yep.
The one I see is Scour from Existence, which is a card I like maybe in like mono black or something, or mono red, where it will deal with things you can't deal with. Here, though, Utter End or Anguish in Making, 99% of the time is going to take care of the same thing. Like, maybe you'll use Scour to deal with a Gaia's Cradle or something, but I just doubt it in this deck. So I would just run Utter End or Anguish in Making over Scour and save yourself 4 mana.
That would lower the curve a little bit, too.
Yeah. So that was one that jumped out to me. The rest of them are all cards that I've played or would play in various decks, and I get it.
I really like comeuppance in this deck. Shut up.
I like comeuppance, but I've had enough situations where I've tried it in the past and it didn't actually work.
I'm surprised you don't run it in Desharu.
That's where I ran it. And I've had situations where like I wanted to prevent the damage, and it didn't work for me for whatever reason. I can't remember what it is.
Probably because there's a Spore Frog in play.
Yeah, something. And I think I had it in the deck, and I wound up replacing it with Teferi's Protection when that came out. I didn't want a second one in that deck for whatever reason.
Which that should be in this deck.
Sure, like if you're really playing with the Ultimate Protection package, Teferi's Protection is the Ultimate Protection package. I mean, it just protects you from everything. So, yeah, that would be one I would definitely strongly consider there. How about in the sorcery field? Anything there?
I'm not a fan of All Is Dust.
Nor am I.
I like All Is Dust a lot, but I think you probably want to run it in a deck that has more than just 13 colorless permanents.
Agreed.
Maybe the thought here is the person is playing in a meta where the sacrifice is really, really valuable.
Maybe.
But I think
gets rid of Academy Rector.
Sure, I guess it hits your own Academy.
You could run a Wrath of God,
or you could run one of the exile effects like Final Judgment or whatever that exiles everything too, and it would also get around indestructible things.
Yep.
I like All Stuff, but I just don't know if I like it enough to run it over Austere Command or over, Cleansing Nova, the new one, or Toxic Deluge, I guess, is already in here, but Supreme Verdict isn't in here. I would probably run Supreme Verdict first for sure at 4 mana.
Yes.
And it can't be countered on top of that.
Right.
Death Grasp, Depth the Deathless, Decree, Time Reversal. Those are all good cards, again, that I've ran in different decks. Time Reversal was maybe the one I wasn't sure about.
I think I would run the 1 mana artifact from M14 that you sack it, gain 5 life, shuffle your graveyard into your library.
Elixir of Immortality.
Yep. Yeah, and although this has the kind of the wheel effect on it, I guess. So maybe that's part of it too. Maybe that's more important than the shuffle effect. I like Time Reversal, but it never feels like a card that I can justify running in any of my decks. Maybe that's just me. I never want it.
I've never really had a time that I've wanted it neither. The only time that I've ever seen it really huge is when someone builds around those effects.
Like in a Nekuzar deck or something where you're killing people when they're drawing those cards too.
I ran it in my Mythics deck because it's too blue to get a brand new hand and shuffle everything back.
And that makes sense there.
Yeah, because you're a spell slinger. You need those spells back because you only have X amount of them.
Okay. So I think that's kind of, generally speaking, where the deck is now. I guess enchantments. Anything enchantments we want to touch on? Well, let's just delete that and I'll start over again. Last but not least, we kind of mentioned this with Academy Rector, but how about enchantments?
I find it interesting because the Ultimate Protection package, but I don't see Propaganda or Ghostly Prison.
Both of which are probably kind of Ultimate Protection cards, I would say.
So I'm terribly sorry to do this to you with your deck, but there's a card called Cradle of Vitality in here, and I thought that our stipulations were no math cards.
That is a math card.
It is totally a math
counters
card.
On stuff. Yep.
Yeah. And it's a good card in the Oloro deck for sure.
It is phenomenal card.
But it puts counters on stuff and it requires you to attack to take advantage of it.
Yep. No, it's whenever you gain life.
Gain life.
You may pay 1 colorless.
Well, right,
white.
but you're putting a counter on a thing and that doesn't matter unless you're attacking. Like who cares if your creatures are getting +1 counters
That's true.
If your plan isn't to attack. Now I'm sure that's a backup plan in this deck at some point in time, but I like Cradle of Vitality in an Oloro deck. I agree, but I just don't.
It's what it came in.
It kind of doesn't make sense if you don't want to attack or deal with math.
The other thing that I'm not seeing in here is like your Banishing Light effects. There's the Quarantine Field, but only the one of, and that requires actually a lot of mana to sink into it to do too much. Where you could play Banishing Light, Oblivion Stone, Grasp of Fate, that kind of stuff.
Oblivion Ring?
Oblivion Ring. You can play Oblivion Stone too.
Right,
you
yeah,
can.
technically you
Protection.
Can. Yeah.
The one that kind of jumped out at me also was Future Sight. Because number one, like we said before, with Stormtide Leviathan, it's kind of hard to cast, causing trip blue.
Yep.
And this doesn't seem like the kind of deck where casting off the top is that useful necessarily. Like I don't run it in my Talran deck anymore, and that was a deck where I'm running a lot of 1 and 2 drop cantrips. And even that, I don't run it anymore. I just don't think I think with the CMC over 4, you're going to see a lot of 4 and 5 drops on top of your library there that you probably can't cast if you've cast something else that turn.
And it might just be a card that's easy to play because it is just an easy, straight up draw an additional card type of thing.
Yeah.
Because I really want to put Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora in here in a in a Pillow Fortish type deck and just draw all the cards.
Right.
But
it also requires you to keep track of more stuff. Yep. Maybe she doesn't want to do that. So I get that.
And your opponents hate those cards as well.
They do.
So you know.
Yeah, for sure. They do.
Trigger.
Trigger. Right. So I don't love Future Sight, but I guess I can see if that's the situation why you'd want to do that. So let's. Is there anything else, Chris? Because I know you kind of had the most suggestions here. Is there anything else we missed or things that you would suggest here? I think you got a combo you want to talk about, right?
We're going to talk about the wonderful, horrible, complete lockout called the Pickles Lock.
I'm Pickle Rick.
I don't know if this one crossed either. Now, I don't know if this is the type of combo that you don't like, but saying that you like hard locks.
It's a hard lock, man. That's as hard as the locks come for the most part.
Brine Elemental, I do believe when it transforms or flips face up, it
flips everything else.
No, it taps everything down.
And you lose the ability to attack, right?
Something like that. Well, then Vesuvan Shapeshifter comes into play, creates a copy of it, flips it upside down. Somehow this combo works. Every time I see it come down, I'm not a happy camper to begin with. But it's pretty much a hard lock.
Yeah, and that wasn't like a standard archetype at the time. Time Spiral Block-ish. Was that Pickles Lock was like a deck that people won stuff with.
The other hard lock that I considered was running more Mana Rocks and running Winter Orb.
Oh yeah, particularly since you're gaining life and
and you can just put up your Pillow Fortish cards. We had spoke about Propaganda or Ghostly Prison and all that, and just then lock them out with Winter Orb.
And the more the slower the game goes, the more life you gain, the further it is, the further you are out of everyone's reach too.
Yep.
That plays into this deck's thought process as well.
To go with these little locks that I had in mind, I saw no tutors in the deck whatsoever.
There are none, yeah.
That could be something to consider if you really want to make it more of a competitive-ish deck.
Yeah.
With the meta, I don't know how your meta is, so I don't want to like push you in that direction.
Maybe not even competitive, just maybe more fluid. Like having a tutor, even if it's like the Diabolic Tutor at 4 mana, you can still get that key piece you need.
Or an answer that will get you that board wipe when the game's out of control, or that will get you that removal piece to deal with that someone else's combo piece that's going to go
My biggest suggestion over Diabolic Tutor, if anyone ever suggests this to you, Mastermind's Acquisition is better. For one key fact, that the secondary clause is that you can play or take a card that you own from outside the game. If you have a card that's exiled, it is removed from the game. You can bring that card back to your hand.
Yes. Or also, there's the Dark Petition is pretty decent too, because it winds up being essential. Because in this deck, she's probably not going to be casting her tutor on turn 2. It's probably going to be turn 5 or 6 or something. At which point, the mana it refunds makes it into a demonic tutor.
Yep. Exactly.
So like I understand the argument against Dark Petition costing 5, and if you're playing like in a super fast meta, that's not something you want to deal with, having to wait till you have 5 mana to cast it. But if you're playing in a much slower, grindier environment, then it just winds up being a demonic tutor.
Right.
All right.
So those were the hard
big
locks.
Ones you had for that.
The two big hard locks I was thinking of. There's a few other cards that I was thinking should be slotted in, but we actually talked about quite a few of them, like Austere Command and stuff like that.
Well, Max, you kind of, in addition to also like doing a once over, you had a suggestion for like really changing the deck.
Yeah.
So what is that? And we'll put a link up because I think you have this online as well.
I will by the time this is posted in 2 weeks.
All right.
So when I was reading through the criteria, I essentially stopped at ultimate protection package and doesn't like to attack. Like, okay, so we're just going to play Oloro Enchantress.
Okay.
So my idea would be, even though they are slightly cards that you have to pay attention to, you put in Mystic Remora, you put in Rhystic Study for your enchantment draw.
Yeah.
You also have stuff like Phyrexian Arena, Greed, Erebos, Thassa, card filtering with Scry. Well of Lost Dreams is already in here, and with the amount of life...
Rugel's Bloodfast, you don't have to flip it. You can just use it as a greed.
Necropotence.
Yeah. Because
we're going to be gaining so much life with how I pictured this in my mind at like 11:45 last night.
But you will.
Right. And then I'm like, okay, well, now let's work on the Pillow Fort stuff. So you have Sphere of Safety. Just with the draw enchantments I named above, people are going to be paying 10 to attack you.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Right. So, in other words, they're just going to be not attacking you.
Yeah, they're just not going to be attacking you. You have your Ghostly Prisons, your Propagandas, and then for the few creatures, I only looked for creatures that have a Pillow Fort built into them. So there's Archangel Ties, Windborn Muse, then you have stuff like Crawl Space, Collective Restraint, Brayard, Steward of Argive is a Pillow Fort creature. Then I also, like, Blazing Archon's already in the deck. That's a good people can attack you card. Then there's stuff like Cascoon Falls. That's the black propaganda.
There is a black propaganda from Homelands.
Yep. Norn's Annex. If they want to attack you, on top of all the mana they have to pay for every creature, now they have to pay 2 life or a white. Nomadic Escape. Give me a second. I'm going to bring that up because it's old and it had a lot of text on it.
One I'll throw out there too, Orification, which is a white enchantment, and whenever a creature deals damage to you, so assuming they actually get through, it gains Defender. It gets a counter on it that gives it Defender. So then not only are people having to pay to get through the other stuff, if they hit you,
they can't.
They're just done then. That
I kind of want to build
swinging.
This deck now. This sounds like fun. You guys are going to hate me so bad. But
Nomadic Escape is 4 white for sorcery. Until your next turn, creatures can't attack you. Exile Nomadic Escape and suspend it with 3 counters on it. Or you can suspend it for 2 and a white for suspend 3, so you just have to wait 3 turns.
Yep.
So it's a recurable protection spell, essentially.
Just say no.
Right. Yeah.
Along with stuff like Teferi's protection.
There's multiple
Time stop.
white fogs. There's darkness and black is a
Yep.
1-mana black fog.
Yep.
Guafa Hazid would
Oh,
be
yeah.
another creature. Put a bribery counter, they can't attack.
That's true.
Orzhov's Advocate. So you're not putting counters on your own creatures. You're letting your opponents decide what creatures of theirs get the +1/+1 counters, and then they can't attack you with those creatures. So it's a political card,
Yeah.
and it's a pillow fort card, and it's a body. And then War Tax.
Is that we have to pay for each? Or
Creatures, attacking creatures can't attack you unless they pay X.
okay. Yep.
And
you choose X.
yep, you pay X. And then, because it's a Oloro, I built in a bunch of the life gain abuse cards. So Sanguine Bond was already in the deck. If you want to be that guy and play this combo, play Exquisite Blood as well, and there's your hard lock and the game's over.
That's one of those bleepity bleep combos.
That's why I would recommend running Bond over Blood, because Bond is when you gain life, target opponent loses, versus
Yep.
when an opponent loses, you gain. Aetherflux Reservoir. We're not spell slinging in this deck, but you're gonna routinely get back up to 50 life to
Just easily
kill someone.
Like
instantly.
you might well be at 50 life just by turn 4, by turn 5 or so.
Right.
If no one's playing fast creatures, you're just going to be in reservoir range just accidentally.
Palace Siege Dragon's Mode. Opponents lose 2 life, you gain 2 life.
Yep.
Halamet's Archive. Double your life.
gain. Yeah.
So I'm breaking some rules a little bit. Instead of playing a lot of creatures, I'm playing stuff like Luminarch Ascension. You don't have to make the count token, but you have the ability to make that 4/4. So
If need be.
If need be. Same with Angelic Accord. It is you get it automatically, but it's a token. It'll go away. Feldar Sovereign. There's a win con. There's a win con. Test of Endurance. If you have 50 life at the end step, you win. And
there's enchantments like Blind Obedience where it shuts off haste.
Yep.
And it gives you a semi-win con, like all the extort stuff that you can just grind somebody out with.
I also have Azor the Lawbringer in here because of his Sphinx's Rev, and he also shuts your opponents down on their turn from casting instants or sorceries.
Yep.
And then the few tempo hit cards, you actually brought up Blind Obedience. Authority of the Councils is the other one I want to slot in this deck. Pendril Myth, because we're not going to run a lot of creatures.
So they can pay a tax on each one as a 1 mana?
Pendril Myth, when it comes in, you pay 1, yeah. Along with Vile Consumption, whenever a player draws a card, reveal it, they have to pay 3 life or discard it. So now you're hand disruptioning. Monastery Siege, if you choose dragons, spells your opponents play that target your permanents cost 2 more.
Yeah.
So now you're protecting all your Pillow Fort stuff. And my favorite one that I dug deep for, and maybe I didn't, and I'm just don't remember. Overburden.
Whenever a creature comes into play, you have to bounce a thing?
Bounce a land to your back to your hand.
I saw it in Vegas. Somebody dropped it. I'm not sure if it was the.
I think it was Don.
Don in his Tanawa deck.
That's why I think I remembered.
I think that's where I saw it. Yeah, I saw it at least once in Vegas somewhere.
So Overburden is an enchantment from Prophecy. It's 1 in a blue. Whenever a player puts a creature card into play, that player returns a land he or she controls to its owner's hand. And it's been eroded to say whenever a player puts a non-token creature onto the battlefield. So if you're playing against a token deck, oh well, but they play their commander, they have to bounce a land.
Yeah.
They play something on turn 1 or on turn 2.
After you play this.
They're now down a land. And they probably have to discard.
Yeah.
So what do you think about with that enchantment build of like a Sphinx's Tutelage or something?
Oh, yeah.
As another win con?
That'd be a great win con.
If you're netting X amount of cards, you just start milling out your opponents, and they just can't do anything to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I mainly just went through like the stuff that I knew that would really slow the game down, the Pillow Fort, the tempo hits. There are creatures that I would personally put in this deck just to abuse the life gain. Archangel Thune. A couple more of those alt-win, if you have X life, you win the game cards that I think we never got to see CCO play because they're dirty players and combo out and win. But I just went on a firestorm building this last night at 1:45. So
nice.
Chris, you may build this. I would be okay with you building it. I kind of want to build it, but you can build it.
Because I actually have an Oloro
You
deck.
have my
You do, yeah.
Oloro.
Yeah, you
I
do.
have it for Two-Headed Giant in the 1v1 format, and I might just do something like this.
There's so much. Like, you could honestly never play a creature and just build Pillow Fort, stop. And then you're in blue and white and black, so you have all your counter spells you need to stop those board wipes, the rifts, and everything like that.
I like it.
And then exsanguinate and feel like a dirty, dirty person.
Right, yeah.
Love it.
Or Torment of Hailfire.
Right. And in that case, I'd be running Urborg, Cabal Coffers, Chromatic Lantern, like all the typical Commander Central 3-color stuff
Yep.
you run.
All right.
What about you, Dana?
I have a deck that I kind of threw together as a joke, but I'm gonna
Oh,
I'm
no.
gonna do it anyway. This is a deck I called Ad Oloro Nauseam.
Is this from a Vegas traumatic experience?
This is kind of a variant on the old Maryland Ad Nauseam deck,
Okay.
and it's mono black Oloro.
Okay, I see where this is
So
going.
the plan is to basically not be playing Oloro at all.
Yep. Just
So
catch everyone off guard, but just keep playing swamps.
yeah. What are
I
you?
just pulled the deck list up because you actually put a deck list.
I did. The
together.
deck was I put the deck was untapped out. It's already up. So 59 lands in this deck. More than that, actually.
More than that.
59 swamps. I have there's some blue. There's a little bit of blue. I have 10 blue sources. So there's all the swamp/islands, which is fetid pools, sunken hollow, and watery graves, because they'll still count as swamps because you need to deal with
Yep.
swamps. But I wanted a few blue sources. And there's a command tower and a couple other things because there's a couple of blue spells, which I will get to in a minute. And there's a Boseiju who shelters all in there as well, so you can keep your ad nauseum from being countered. There's 5 artifacts, all of which cost 0 or 1. So there's a Chrome Mox, a Soul Ring, an Everflowing Chalice, which you may cast in your first couple turns, but like you probably won't care. You're probably not going to matter. Dark Sphere, which costs 0 mana. It's super important to this deck.
It is.
Chris is just because Chris has seen this. Chris knows where this is all going, and some of the listeners probably do. I'm guessing as well. Dark Sphere is 0 mana, and you can sacrifice it to prevent half the damage from one source. There's also an Elixir of Immortality, which we mentioned earlier. 1 drop, gain 5 life, and shuffle your graveyard into your library in case you need to try this whole process again. And I'll get to that process in a minute. There's 9 instants, and they are pretty much cheap 1 blue mana requiring counter spells. So there's like a Swan Song, a Delay. There's actually a couple of tutors in there as well. Vamp Tutor, Dark Ritual, so you can like speed this process up on turn 1 or 2. So there's some rituals in there. And of course, Chris is just like, if you guys could see this, just see Chris shaking his head the entire time. The most important instant is Ad Nauseam.
What does that do, Dana?
Ad Nauseam reads 3 black, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. You may repeat this any number of times. So, since 3/4 of your deck are lands, and the other 20% of that remaining quarter is 0 drop stuff, and by this point in time, Oloro has already gained you a significant amount of life, so you're ahead of everybody else. There's also a bunch of tutors in here. So basically you want to tutor up Ad Nauseam, cast it, and then you want to flip it until you hit 2 cards. Dark Sphere, which I mentioned before, and a sorcery called Sickening Dreams.
Sickening Dreams is 1 in a black, and as an additional cost to cast Sickening Dreams, discard X cards. Sickening Dreams deals X damage to each creature and each player. Oh, lordy.
So you Ad Nauseam down until you hit both your Dark Sphere and your Sickening Dreams, and you'll take damage along the way, but you're not going to take very much because almost your stuff is all lands or 0 drops. You're probably going to be ahead of everybody in life anyway.
And you just drew 70 cards.
You draw 70 cards, cast your Sickening Dreams, discard all of those cards to do 70 damage or 60, whatever the number you need to hit. You can sacrifice your Dark Sphere to take half of it yourself, and you're ahead in life anyway because it's Oloro, and everybody dies. That is the mono black Oloro Ad Nauseam Sickening Dreams combo deck. And
Don't show up to this with this, please,
And it's
Dana.
cheap. That's a cheap deck. You can build that for
What
cheap.
possessed you to go this route?
I was trying to think. So we mentioned his name before with the overburdened, Don Miner from EDH Rec had a mono black Oloro deck that was a control deck, and I just liked the thought of playing only one color of the commander. So you could do that with Oloro because he does something from the command zone, or you could, I guess, do it with Edgar or any of the Eminence commanders, or even something that has hybrid mana. So you could do a mono black or mono blue Una, Queen of the Fae. So I thought that was pretty clever to do. So I'm I wonder if at some point I could do that. And I saw Oloro and remembered that. I'm what would be a good Oloro? I'm you don't want to do mono white Oloro.
No, you do not.
I don't know what mono blue would do. I'm mono black you could do. And then I just remembered the old Ad Nauseam Sickening Dreams combo from either Marijuana of the Morning Song, or I think Sidisi does it too. And here we are, non-attacking Oloro, where you don't need to worry about counters or
casting Oloro,
paying attention to anything or attacking. You can just kill people with your extra life.
And knowing that the combo is literally Ad Nauseam
and Sickening Dreams, it's
Sickening
easy.
Dreams and the artifact.
Yeah, it's an easy combo.
It is not complex.
And you have the Electrode Immortality in the deck to reset everything if something happens. You've got Pact of Negation in there as a counter spell to protect it, because you don't care about the next turn and paying mana.
How are you making the second blue? Oh, you have 10 blue sources. That's right.
But it's also Pact, so Pact of Negation is the 0 cost.
But on your upkeep,
you don't
only
care.
use
You're
it
killing them
when
True.
you're going off.
You're using it to stop the combo.
It's a typical combo counter.
Okay.
I also put the black Death
Slaughter
Pact in there in case you need to remove a creature at instant speed. That you can pay for next turn, but you don't have to. And neither of them burn you if you have them in the deck when you flip them with Ad Nauseam.
Okay, yeah, very true. This is awesome. I like this.
So that list is already up and online in our account, but we'll put it in the Twitter link for next week. So Oloro,
it's so cheap.
Add Oloro Nauseam. It's a cheap deck. It's
like $200.
Yeah, and she has expensive cards for the most part.
What would be fun, and this is my suggestion for you guys, when you do this deck, try to pick up the cards for that mono black version, have it sleeved up.
Yes,
and then just every other time you come in, you sit down and you're playing Oloro, and no one knows which version you're playing.
Right, for sure,
Every version.
Have them have this version because this one's cheap, and everyone will never know if you're playing the real Oloro deck or if you're going to do this. Yeah, that would be great.
Especially when they're being mean to you, and you're just oh, really? Okay, you know what? Commander Central told me to do this.
Right.
Eat it.
Right. If you want to get back at those guys for this, you should subscribe to them on Patreon. that'll teach them.
And they will build you a dirty combo
deck.
deck.
Exactly. All right. So I think, is there anything else we want to talk about Oloro here? Or
I think we each had a very interesting take on
this
deck.
Actually, that was kind of fun doing 3 different looks at it rather than just kind of going over the whole thing in huge
it was
detail.
Actually, I enjoyed the fact that this deck was simple to go over.
Yes, I did too,
because there
actually.
were so many stipulations that it wasn't hard to really go digging, because you're okay, well, that's out of the window.
Yeah,
and
she
that
doesn't
kind
want
of
to do
stuff.
this or that, so we can just eliminate that kind of stuff. That's easy peasy. It's a easy deck to make better, but it's also one where you don't have to draw down and be man, this is already super tight. So, no, thank you very much for bringing this to us. We appreciate it.
We appreciate the support, too.
Absolutely. We really appreciate that. So we'll be back next week where we will have our contest winners, and we will be talking about something that we haven't decided yet, since that's 3 weeks from now. We have all the time in the world. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.